My own family betrayed me, accused me of a crime, and threw me out. But when I uncovered the truth, their whole world collapsed. "You're selfish and ungrateful. Get out of this house and don't come back." My mother's voice echoed through the living room, sharp and final. I stood frozen, my heart pounding. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't an argument that would blow over in a few hours. She meant it. I looked at my dad, searching for anything, any sign that he would stand up for me. But he just turned away. I felt my chest tighten. My hands trembled as I grabbed my bag. No one stopped me. No one asked me to stay. I stepped outside, the cold night air hitting my skin like a slap. The door slammed behind me. And just like that, I was homeless. I walked down the driveway, my mind blank. No plan. No idea what to do next. How had this happened? 2 hours ago, I was sitting at the dinner table, eating with my family like any other night. Then, out of nowhere, my mom started screaming at me, accusing me of taking advantage of them. "We've done everything for you, and you repay us like this? You act like this is your house. Like you deserve everything handed to you." I didn't even know what she was talking about. I tried to defend myself, but she wouldn't listen. Neither would my dad. Neither would my sister. It was like they had made up their minds before I even opened my mouth. I thought it would blow over. That maybe they just needed to cool off. But when I walked outside and saw my suitcase sitting on the curb, I knew this was real. I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking. I had nowhere to go. But before I could even think of who to call, it buzzed. A text. From my dad. "You better not forget to pay the mortgage this month." I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. They had kicked me out, cut me off, acted like I was nothing. But they still expected me to pay for their house? I let out a bitter laugh. So that was it. That was all I had ever been to them. Not a son. Not a brother. Just a walking ATM. I stood outside my parents' house, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles ached. The message from my dad glowed on the screen. "You better not forget to pay the mortgage this month." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. They had just thrown me out, screamed at me, humiliated me. But now? Now they wanted my money? I looked back at the house. The same house I had been paying for month after month. The same house where I had grown up. And now, the same house where my family had just made it crystal clear that I wasn't welcome. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. I had no home, no backup plan, no family, but they still thought I would keep supporting them like nothing happened. I wanted to scream, to bang on the door and demand answers, to ask them how they could be so heartless. But deep down, I already knew the answer, because to them I had never been family. I had been a paycheck. And now that I wasn't under their roof, they thought they could still control me with guilt. I took a shaky breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I needed a plan. I checked my bank account, scrolling through the transactions. My stomach twisted as I saw just how much money I had been sending them over the years. Rent, utilities, groceries, random cash requests, thousands and thousands of dollars. And now I was standing on the sidewalk, homeless, while they sat inside, warm, comfortable, completely unbothered. I thought back to all the times I had put them first. When my mom called me last year, crying about the mortgage being late, I had wired the money immediately. No questions asked. When my dad said his car broke down, I covered the repair bill without hesitation. When my sister wanted to go on a trip with her friends, I paid for it. Because she deserved a break. And now, they were the ones kicking me out? I clenched my jaw. I wouldn't give them another cent. They could figure it out on their own. But a small, nagging voice in my head whispered, what if they don't? What if they actually expected me to keep paying? I scrolled through my messages, looking for anything that explained why they had turned on me so suddenly. Nothing. The last text from my mom had been just 2 days ago. "Hey sweetie, don't forget to send the money on Friday. Love you." Fake. Every word of it. I should have seen it then. The way they only reached out when they needed something. The way love always came with a price tag. I took a deep breath and started walking. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew one thing for sure. This was the last time they would ever use me. Let them figure out how to pay their own damn mortgage. Let them see what happens when the ATM runs dry. I pulled up my banking app, my finger hovering over the autopay settings. Then, with a deep breath, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I canceled everything. No more payments. No more support. No more being treated like a wallet instead of a son. And something told me they weren't ready for what would happen next. I lay awake in my car, staring at the ceiling, my phone resting on my chest. The cold air seeped in through the cracked window, but I barely felt it. My mind was too busy replaying everything that had happened. Just a few hours ago, I had a home, a family, a place to belong. Now I was nobody to them. I had canceled all the payments, the mortgage, the utilities, even the grocery deliveries I had been covering for the past few months. If they wanted to treat me like I didn't exist, then they could survive without me. I closed my eyes, expecting to feel regret, maybe even guilt. But I felt nothing, not a single ounce of remorse. And when my phone buzzed, I already knew who it was. A text from my mom. "What did you do?" The mortgage didn't go through. I stared at the screen, my hands tightening around the phone. No apology. No concern about where I was, whether I was okay. Just panic. Because for the first time in years, they actually had to pay their own bills. I locked my phone and threw it onto the passenger seat. They would figure it out. They had to. But the next morning, I woke up to 15 missed calls. Mom. Dad. Even my sister, who hadn't said a single word to me when I was being kicked out. The voicemails were frantic. "You need to fix this. The bank is saying we're past due. Are you serious right now? After everything we've done for you. You're being selfish. We took care of you for years, and this is how you repay us." I let out a short, humorless laugh. They took care of me? That was funny. Because as far back as I could remember, it was me taking care of them. I remembered being 16, giving my mom money for my first paycheck because she said things were tight that month. I remembered skipping out on college trips so I could send cash home instead. I remembered working extra shifts, missing sleep, skipping meals, all so they could live comfortably. And now that I had finally stopped, they couldn't survive without me. My stomach growled, but I ignored it. Food could wait. Right now, I just wanted to enjoy this moment. Because for the first time ever, they needed me more than I needed them. I sat in my car, phone buzzing nonstop beside me. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. Mom. Dad. My sister. The same people who threw me out like garbage just 2 nights ago were now desperate to reach me. I leaned back in my seat, staring up at the ceiling. I could already imagine the chaos inside that house. The bills piling up. The bank breathing down their necks. The utilities on the verge of being shut off. And for the first time, it wasn't my problem. I picked up my phone, scrolling through the texts. Mom, you're being childish. This isn't funny. Dad, we raised you, and this is how you treat us? Sister, you're ruining everything. Fix it. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. I was ruining everything? No. They had ruined it the second they decided I was only worth keeping around as long as I was paying their bills. I tossed my phone onto the dashboard and started the car. I needed food. A plan. Something. But just as I pulled out of the parking lot, another message popped up. This one stopped me cold. It wasn't from my parents. It was from my parents' landlord. Hi, just a reminder that rent is due. Haven't received payment this month. Let me know if there's an issue. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Rent? They had told me they owned that house. For years, they guilt me into paying for our family home. The place they planned to pass down through generations. But it was a rental. Everything they said was a lie. The mortgage I had been paying didn't exist. They weren't about to lose a house they owned. They were about to get evicted. I shut off the engine, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. They didn't just use me. They scammed me. And now? Now, they were finally about to face the consequences. I sat there, gripping my phone, rereading the landlord's message over and over. All this time, I thought I was paying the mortgage, helping them keep our family home. But the truth? There was no mortgage. No family home. They had been renting the whole time. And I had been the one paying for it. My stomach twisted. Years of sacrifices. Years of choosing them over myself. Skipping trips, skipping meals, skipping anything that wasn't a necessity, just so they could live comfortably. And they never told me the truth. I took a shaky breath, trying to push down the rage boiling in my chest. No, I wasn't going to let them pull me back in. This was their mess now. I locked my phone and set it down. Let them figure it out. I pulled out of the parking lot, my hands still shaking. I needed time to think. Needed air. But my peace didn't last long. An hour later, as I was sitting in a diner, eating my first proper meal in 2 days, my phone lit up again. A voicemail. From my dad. I hesitated before pressing play. His voice came through the speaker, desperate, completely different from the cold, dismissive tone he had used when they kicked me out. Pick up the phone. We need to talk. It's urgent. I took another bite of my food, letting the message play. The landlord just called. He says we're late on rent. You were supposed to take care of this. I scoffed. I was supposed to take care of it? They really thought I was going to keep paying after what they did? The voicemail continued. If we don't send the payment by Friday, he's starting the eviction process. I felt a smirk tug at the corner of my lips. Eviction. That meant no more house. No more comfort. No more easy life at my expense. For the first time in years, they were going to feel what it was like to struggle. I deleted the voicemail and went back to my meal. Let them panic. Let them scramble. I owed them nothing, and something told me. This was only the beginning. I sat in that diner, my half-eaten meal in front of me, staring at my phone. 23 missed calls. Mom. Dad. Even my sister, who had stood there silently while they threw me out like trash. They were desperate. I leaned back in my seat, watching as another voicemail notification popped up. I already knew what it would say. Another demand. Another guilt trip. Another attempt to make me feel like the bad guy for refusing to be used. I wasn't falling for it. They had made their choice when they slammed that door in my face. And now? They were paying the price. But I was curious. I scrolled through the voicemails, clicking on the most recent one from my mom. Her voice came through the speaker, shaky, frantic. You need to answer the phone. This isn't funny anymore. The landlord is serious. He's giving us until Friday, and then he's taking legal action. I could almost see her pacing the living room, panicked, finally realizing what it felt like to not have control. She kept talking, her voice rising. Do you have any idea what you've done? We could lose everything. You think you're proving a point? You're just being cruel. Cruel. That word made me laugh. Where was this concern when I was standing on that porch with nowhere to go? Where was this desperation when they watched me leave without a second thought? I clicked off the voicemail and scrolled down. Another one from my sister. I hesitated before pressing play. Unlike my parents, she had never been the one asking me for money directly. She had just benefited from it. I expected her to be as angry as my mom. But when her voice came through, it wasn't anger I heard. It was fear. You need to fix this. I don't care what happened, just fix it. I frowned, sitting up straighter. I don't think you get it. Mom and Dad never saved anything. They spent it all. There's no backup plan. If the rent isn't paid, they're done. I gritted my teeth. So that was it. They had nothing. No emergency fund. No safety net. All those years of them calling me irresponsible for setting aside money for myself, and they were the ones living paycheck to paycheck. I should have felt sorry for them. But all I felt was relief. Because for once, I wasn't the one left scrambling. For once, they had to deal with their own mess. I locked my phone, tossed a few bills on the table for my meal, and walked out of the diner. They had 3 days to figure it out. And I wasn't lifting a finger to help them. 3 days. That's all they had left. I could picture them now, pacing the house, whispering frantic plans, scrambling for a way out. But there wasn't one. For years, I had been their solution. The safety net. The backup plan. Now, they were on their own. I checked my phone. 13 new messages. I didn't even have to read them. The pattern was obvious. First, the demands. You need to take responsibility and fix this. Then, the guilt trips. After everything we've done for you, This is how you treat your own family? And finally, the begging. Just one more payment. We'll figure it out after that, we promise. I smirked. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. They didn't miss me. They missed my money. I locked my phone and tossed it on the bed of my cheap motel room. I should have been stressed. Should have been worried about what came next. But for the first time in years, I felt something else. Peace. I didn't have to wake up to another emergency. Another financial crisis that I was expected to solve. I was finally free. The next morning, I grabbed breakfast from the diner down the street. I took my time, ate slowly, enjoyed every bite. They, on the other hand, they were running out of time. And by noon, they were out of options. The phone rang. Mom. I ignored it. It rang again. Dad. Then, my sister. I exhaled, debating if I should answer, just to hear how bad things had gotten. But before I could decide, a new message popped up. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've done. I raised an eyebrow. The desperation was turning into anger. And that's when I realized they weren't just going to accept this. They were about to do something reckless. I stared at the message on my screen. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've done. The shift was instant. The begging was over. The guilt trips had failed. Now? They were angry. I should have seen it coming. My family never took responsibility for anything. They had never faced real consequences. And now that they were about to lose everything, they weren't blaming themselves. They were blaming me. I tossed my phone onto the motel bed and ran a hand down my face. I had given them every opportunity to treat me like family. They chose to treat me like a wallet. And now that the wallet was closed, they wanted revenge. I checked my messages again. My sister had sent a long one, paragraphs of insults mixed with desperate attempts to make me feel guilty. But one sentence stood out. Dad's making some calls. You better hope he doesn't go through with it. My stomach twisted. I didn't know what that meant. But I knew my father. He wasn't going to sit back and let this happen. He was going to try to hurt me. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. I had been one step ahead this entire time. I wasn't about to let them pull me back into their mess. I checked my bank account again. Still safe. Still secure. They had no access. But money wasn't the only thing they could use against me. They had connections. And if they couldn't control me financially, they were about to try something else. I didn't know what their next move was. But I knew one thing. I needed to be ready. I knew my family well enough to know one thing. They weren't going down without a fight. They had spent years controlling me, guilt-tripping me, keeping me under their thumb. The second I broke free, they started spiraling. And now? They were about to do something reckless. I checked my messages again. My sister's words still stared back at me. Dad's making some calls. You better hope he doesn't go through with it. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it wasn't good. A bad feeling settled in my stomach. I had taken away their money, their stability, their power. And people like them? They didn't just accept losing. They needed someone to blame. And since they couldn't get to my bank account anymore, they were coming for my life. I drove around for a while, trying to clear my head. I wasn't scared of them. But I knew they could still make my life a living hell if they wanted to. And when my phone rang again, an unknown number, I knew exactly what was coming next. I answered. A cold, professional voice spoke on the other end. We're calling regarding a recent fraud alert on your account. I sat up straighter, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. Fraud alert? My heart pounded as I pulled into an empty parking lot and put the car in park. The voice continued, explaining that a large transaction had been flagged under my name. A loan application, one that I had never made. I forced my breathing to stay even. They were trying to trap me. They couldn't bleed money from me anymore, so they had tried something else. Stealing my identity. Taking out loans in my name. I clenched my jaw. They thought I would panic. They thought I would crawl back, begging for help. They thought they still had control. I kept my voice calm as I answered the fraud department's questions, confirming that the application wasn't mine. Within minutes, the account was locked down. Nice try, Dad. But they weren't done. Not even close. As soon as I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Another text. You think you're so smart. You just made things worse for yourself. I exhaled slowly. They were losing control, losing their safety net, losing their easy life. And instead of fixing their own mess, they were trying to drag me down with them. But they had already lost. They just didn't know it yet. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my heart pounding in my chest. They had tried everything. Guilt, manipulation, lies. And when none of that worked, they tried to ruin me. A fraudulent loan in my name. A desperate attempt to trap me, to force me back into their control. But just like everything else, it failed. I checked my phone again. The fraud case had already been flagged. The account was locked. They had nothing left. And they knew it. A new message popped up. From my sister. I hope you're happy. We're losing the house. Mom is sick over this. Dad says it's your fault. You destroyed our family. I let out a slow breath, staring at the words. I destroyed our family. Not them. Not their years of lies. Not their constant use of me as a financial crutch. Me. I closed my eyes and leaned back against the seat. If they had spent even half the energy on actually taking care of themselves, instead of trying to control me, maybe they wouldn't be in this position. But they had never been interested in standing on their own 2 feet. They only knew how to take. And now? There was nothing left to take. That Friday, just as they had warned, the eviction process started. I didn't reach out. I didn't ask how they were doing. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. Because this wasn't my fault. They made their choices. They built their lives around me supporting them. And when that support was gone, everything crumbled. Not because I ruined anything, but because they never learned how to survive without me. I heard through a mutual friend that my parents had to move in with my mom's cousin. My sister, who had lived rent-free her entire life, was forced to get a job. They were finally feeling the struggle they had thrown onto me for years. And me? For the first time in a long time. I was free. I had my own place. My own money. My own life. No more random emergencies. No more waking up to messages demanding payments. No more being treated like an ATM instead of a son. I had one. And the best part? I didn't even have to take revenge. They destroyed themselves.